I'm actually really excited about the release of Cisco Modeling Labs free, because even before I joined Cisco, back in the early days of Cisco Modeling Labs like 1.x, I've been a huge fan and supporter of it.
The big feature in 2.9 is the support for Docker containers, which opens up an entire new world of applications and network functions, and whatever is in a container that may be available on Docker Hub, or where you build a specific container for your specific use case yourself. All of that is now being runnable within CML.
The first thing I want to touch on, and it's something that's asked quite a bit about Cisco Modeling Labs, Cisco Live, and other places, is can I connect virtual devices to physical devices? And the answer is yes.
Hey, Snackers, this is Kareem Iskander.
Hey, everyone, Matt DiNapoli here. Again, we have our best friend, I would say, right? Quinn's
at this point, you should just host with us.
I was going to say, at this point, I'm a co-host.
Quinn's with us today, which is really exciting. As usual, he always has wonderful insights and things to show us. But a few months back, actually, we had Joe Clark on, and we were talking about Cisco Modeling Labs, CML, the free version that was going to be coming out. But Quinn's here today to kind of dive into some details and show us what we need and talk about more of the technical aspects of things, so that for those of you out there who are really pumped about this, like I am, we can get going as fast as possible. So Quinn, introduce yourself to those new snackers, if there are any new ones, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, I'm Quinn. I think this is 10 or 11 times I've been on here. Technical advocate with Cisco Learning and Certs, and I'm actually really excited about the release of Cisco Modeling Labs free, because even before I joined Cisco, back in the early days of Cisco Modeling Labs like 1.x, I've been a huge fan and supporter of it. So seeing it evolve from the 1.x to now 2.x, and now the free version is super. I couldn't be happier with it.
We're excited too. On the DevNet side, the CML sandboxes are the ones that are reserved most by a factor of like 250. So I think all those people, it might affect our numbers on that, but I think we're giving an opportunity to people to really dig in with CML and have a lot more control than they might have had in scenarios where they're really using our sandbox, or even potentially leveraging an enterprise situation that they don't necessarily control. So there's really exciting opportunities here.
But also the DevNet Sandbox gives them a hosted solution that takes the heavy lifting of what Quinn is about to show us right now with downloading. There's also limitations. My understanding is, and I'm sure Quinn is going to keep me honest here, but my understanding is it does not run on your personal Mac. So you need to have a PC. And if that's the case, then, DevNet Sandbox is a solution for you. But Quinn, with what I just said, clearly there are a lot of things that you need to know and understand in order to successfully get CML free installed on your system. Can you walk us through your gotchas and what do you recommend?
Yeah. So first of all, props to DevNet. The Cisco Modeling Labs documentation is top notch. It's a first rate resource for everything. And if you actually were to Google Cisco Modeling Labs free, the first link will take you to this page, the Cisco Modeling Labs free page. So first of all, in order to install it, you have to get it, right? So there's a free sign up link where you will input your information into a registration page, and then you'll be given access to the Cisco Modeling Labs installation available through our typical Cisco software download process. Couple of things that come with that. So the caveats and everything is covered in the documentations. The big thing is to your point, Kareem, this is just a virtual machine that requires x86 virtualization. So the platform needs to be running x86 and then be x86 compatible for the vert side of things, because you're running VNFs, virtual network functions, right? So you need to have an Intel-based system. You can run it on your laptop if your laptop is Intel-based. So it supports all of the major virtualization pieces. So you can run it within VMware Workstation. You can run it in ESXi. People have supported it in Proxmox, and there's a whole community that's available out there to support that. But yes, you do need x86 processing power, first of all. It is installed just like any other VM. So you need to be familiar with your virtualization system in order to install that. You have either an OVA or an ISO to install that. You'll be given two ISOs. One is the actual platform, and then one is the what they call the the ref plat or the reference ISO for all of the images that are there. So you're going to need both of those because you need to have the Cisco Modeling Labs platform and the images to run the virtualized images, the VNFs, to be able to simulate your network. So you'll need both those ISOs. You'll need, and like I said, all the documentation here of how to install that, the downloading CML free, installing CML free. It's all available on the developer docs if you were to just search for that. I'm sure we'll have that linked in the notes as well. The other limitation behind that, and I can touch a little bit more on this when we do a little bit of a demo with it, is only 5 concurrent nodes are supported as running at any one time.
Joe had mentioned that.
And a node is anything that requires computing power. So you have whether it's a router, a switch, a virtual desktop. That's you can run 5 concurrent nodes at a time, and you're only given a small subset of the total images. So you talk about what's available with the DevNet Sandbox, where you have lots of different images that are available. With the Cisco Modeling Labs Free Edition, you only have access to the IOL, so iOS on Linux. IOL L2, so layer 2 image, so a virtual switch basically, ASAV, and then a couple of VMs that simulate desktop hosts. So you don't get the full suite of everything, but you get quite a bit of different nodes and things that you can use to simulate different projects, especially in that associate to professional level, CCNP, CCNA. This is more than sufficient for that.
So we have kind of talked about what we can't do with it and the limitations. Let's actually see what we can do. Quinn, I know as usual, you probably have a demo to show us some cool stuff. Why don't we take a look at that?
Yeah. So first of all, again, to Kareem's point, this is, I run an M series Mac. So I can't run this natively. I do have this running just to show you kind of the whole Rocky and Bullwinkle, nothing up my sleeve. I'm not hiding anything. I am running this in a server that's sitting in my garage baking right now in the Phoenix heat.
How do you keep that thing cool, man?
It goes off. It'll actually be turned off probably in the next 3 weeks when the garage becomes an oven. But until then, I get to do this demo.
He puts a fan on his bike and he just rides on his bike and he cools it off while he's typing.
My visual is he has it racked in his fridge.
In his deep freezer where all his meat is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can see it is on that .172 address. And this is just an example. So I have a couple of different labs pulled up. One of the things that you will see when you actually have it installed and you go to the web UI within Cisco Modeling Labs, you'll see that it is indicating a free tier. So it will show you that you are running free tier. So you can't take a ref plat from another version and try to install it. This is locked down. So you're only allowed the 5 nodes and the node types that are there. However, and I'll just pull up my dashboard here. There's a lot of a variety of things that we can do with it. So all of these topologies are ones that I have built inside of the lab itself and are supported. So you can see this one, I've got 3 desktops that are simulated with a core switch, and I'm doing some OSPF here, different VLAN. So I'm doing some SVIs and some VLAN routing. So that whole multi-layer switching and some OSPF routing that's covered in the CCNA. And then I want to point out that this even though it's the Cisco Modeling Labs free version is restricted to the types of nodes, under the hood, everything else is still the same. So like these dynamic annotations that are there, that's supported. Things like PADI to Breakout. The Breakout tool is supported for remote access, bridged interfaces. In fact, let me go back here to this network address translation here. So you can see I have more nodes than actually 5. More icons than 5 on the screen. However, things like this unmanaged switch and the breakout here that allows me to connect my topology to my external network, those don't count under my node limit. The only things that count are my routers and switches and my virtual firewall. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. You get access to the ASAV as well with this the free tier. So all of that's supported within Cisco Modeling Labs free. You get access to the API as well. So if you're looking to do some programmability, some automation, not just of the individual devices there, but even of Cisco Modeling Labs itself, you get access to the Python client library, access to the API. All of those things are still there and supported within Cisco Modeling Labs free version, just as you would if you were running either the Personal Plus, or an Enterprise version.
I think you touched on something here that I wanted to say, which is with Cisco Modeling Lab free and the ability to build topologies good enough for our associate level certification, especially the CCNA. I think this is a great tool that could be a sidekick for you to get the hands-on muscle memory training that you need to pass the CCNA. So it's a great resource to have. It's good to have as part of your studying. We've also, I think, Quinn and I worked on a set of Cisco U tutorials that allows you to leverage the CCNA, that allows you to leverage the Cisco Modeling Lab free with topologies to import that, so you could do the tutorials that are all centric around CCNA, and then you can actually get the hands-on training with CML free. So it's a great resource for learning.
And one other piece behind that, Kareem. So in addition to having the being able to support all of the things that are required in the CCNA blueprint, so your multi-layer switching, your spanning tree, your OSPF, your NAT, your services, even to the point where we can test things like, for example, if I wanted to log into this device remotely. So just to show you, I have this broken out. So there's an external port that's connected to that breakout on that 192, 168, 128, 247. I can SSH into that. So if I were to just type in the credentials at Cisco, which is the default, you can see that I'm running here just as I would if I was remotely SSH'd into a device, running, a real router or something in the enterprise version. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is within the CCNA blueprint, we've added these things called lablets, where it's a small lab environment that requires you to perform some configuration, and then the results of that configuration are checked against what we would expect that thing to be. All of those lablets are actually running iOS on Linux, IOL. So when you study for the CCNA using the Cisco Modeling Labs free, and you're building your topologies using IOL and IOL2, those VNFs, that simulated device is actually what you're going to be configuring in those lablets. So it's not just, hey, I can build these things and align to the blueprint. I can actually take, and I'm running on the same operating system versions, the same operating syntax. Everything is the same as what I was expect in the lablets on the CCNA and CCNP blueprint. So it meshes in very well with the entire certification strategy and studying and all those different kinds of things as well.
This is fantastic. I know I was excited when Joe talked about it, but the thing that I've always noticed from the learning community is just challenge in getting access to things. For as many opportunities as we've tried to give, there's always limitations and barriers that we're hitting. And you guys have broken down a big one right now with this. And I think that you're going to see a lot of good feedback from the community on all of this. And, I'm thinking about all of those NetAcad students that are probably salivating, so excited that they can get their hands on CML without having to set a reservation or pay a bunch of money. This is going to be an invaluable tool. And the fact that you guys have tied content to it and the lablets and everything, I can't commend you guys enough for how much thought and effort was put into this. I mean, I know it's been a few years coming. It's really, really exciting to see it out the door now.
Yeah, I second that. I think the team did a really good job having that out as a resource for our community for free. It's very valuable. Quinn, was there anything else that you wanted to cover as far as the installation and getting that up and running?
No, I mean, so the installation, like I said, the documentation is there as long as you're familiar with how you install virtual machines. So if you've installed a virtual machine on your Windows PC or your Intel-based Mac or your hypervisor, it's the same as you would do there. The instructions are great. So the install, they actually have here's the installation guide, here's links, here's all the things that you need to do. That's great. There's a vibrant community. There's the CML community available on GitHub where they have different topologies that are posted and message boards and issues and things like that. There's a ton of support there. It's to the point of making these things accessible. Yes, this is a little bit more than a double-click install, but the power behind it and the community support that's available for you is really it's just incredible. And we're trying to make this as universally accepted as possible because I know that I use Cisco Modeling Labs in both my studies as well as the 501c3s that I work with, trying to teach them the skills and things like that. So it's helping people, and I'm just happy to be able to bring a free version that's accessible for everyone.
Well, unfortunately, Quinn, that's all the time we have today. But this has been hyper informative and very exciting. Snackers, as soon as you can, get out there and start to check out the CML free and install it, start kicking the tires, and get to learning. So thank you so much, Quinn, for cluing us in on all this.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Quinn. Thank you, Snackers. Hey, Snackers. This is Kareem Iskander.
Hey everyone, Matt Napoli here. Some of our good friends in engineering were working on updating one of our favorite topics, Cisco Modeling Labs, or CML as we like to know it. And we have some old friends of ours, but new to the show, Ralph and Justin. Guys, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, and then we'll get into some of the new updates for CML.
Yeah, I'm Justin Gualiata. I've been with the Cisco Modeling Labs team for about 5 years now. I do a lot of architecture, a lot of the UI stuff, some of the back end. But yeah, day to day working on Cisco Modeling Labs.
Fantastic.
My name is Ralph. I'm the guy who's in Germany. You can probably tell from the funny accent. And I'm working on this product from like 2014 or something. So like for a really, really long time. And I'm also like on the engineering side of things and, looking over architecture and also doing, sometimes they let me do programming. So yeah.
Since it was called Viral, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so good to have you on the show, guys. What are we doing? What's new with CML? Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
We have released a 2.9, so it's a matter of days. We are in the process of releasing it to CCO, and 2.9 is a very exciting release because we have added something that a lot of our customers have asked for, which is the big feature in 2.9 is the support for Docker containers, which opens up, as I said before, in a different context. It opens up an entire new world of applications and network functions, and whatever is in a container that may be available on Docker Hub, or where you build a specific container for your specific use case yourself. All of that is now being runnable within CML. So that's quite exciting to us, and I hope this is also super exciting to our customers. And that is just the big rock feature, but there is a ton of other tiny things, not so tiny things that accompany the container support within CML 2.9.
So let me get some clarification on this, because I'm not super familiar with past instances of us being able to run containers. But is this the ability to run containers on the virtual images of the devices, or is this the ability to run containers as separate outside services, but within Cisco Modeling Labs?
It is the ability to run containers as full featured nodes, full, first-class citizens, I should say, within CML. So like previously, all nodes except for very few are virtual machines, like full-featured x86 virtual machines running inside of QEMU, running inside of CML. There were a few exceptions, like, external connectors and these kind of things, like some adjacent or auxiliary nodes. Mm-hmm. And then there was also IOL, which is kind of a, in-between thing. But now with containers, you basically have the ability to run a network operating system or a network virtual function inside of a Docker container. And it's a full node type that you can run inside of CML. So the best thing, I guess, to show or to demonstrate is a demonstration to actually show what that would look like.
Sure. Let's see it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. Yeah. So I have a little instance running here. As you can tell, this is what we call the dashboard, where you have your multiple labs showing up. Right now, I just have one for the demo purpose here. And you can see this is my little demo topology here. And inside of that demo topology, we have a bunch of nodes. And so these nodes here, they are this is a virtual machine. This is an Ubuntu virtual machine. So this is something that CML could do from day one, pretty much. And then the auxiliary things that I mentioned before, external connectivity, like these guys here. Then there is two networking devices, traditional routers and switches. But then there is also these things in the green bubble over here, which are containers. And as you can tell, these are like Chrome and Firefox. These are browsers, and these are network functions. So in this case, this is just the TACX plus authentication service, and this is the web server over here. So we can bring this guy up, and then we can provide TACX service and just TACX service to the network here. So if I look at this guy here, so this just runs the TACX Plus service, like an open source TACX Plus implementation. And if you click on the configuration over here, you see how this is being configured. So you can see, okay, so this is my network device that is allowed to talk to it. And then there's like a couple of groups and users set up. And just for the demo purpose here, I could click on this link here and say, hey, I want to do a packet capture on this link to actually see what's going on. And I could potentially, yeah, that should be fine. And then if I go to this guy over here and open up a console, and you could already see packets coming in here. So if I say enable here, and then do a telnet to 10.32.0.10, which is this device here, right? And this device has been set up to use TACX for authentication using this little thing over here. And I see that I get the TACX Plus prompt, and I can log in using TACX admin. Oops, if I could type and admin 123, and I get access here. So if I look at this guy over here and do the same thing on the console, I could see my TACX log showing up here. Like this was in the result of my authentication coming in. And if I look at my packet capture, I would potentially see maybe further down the road, I could see the TACX packages coming in. And so this is perfect for, like students to learn about like TACX authentication. We also have a container for Radius, and we have like these little things that we bundle the product now with 2.9, where we have a bunch of network functions, a bunch of like, helpers or network tooling, that are not, they don't need to run in a virtual machine using a lot of resources. They can also run in a container. And this is like the purpose of this thing, using very little resources. And if we look at this thing here, you can see there is my Ubuntu node, which uses 583 megabytes of memory right now. But then there is my TACX container. I mean, you can tell this is just like, the essence of it, right? It's just running this TACX process inside of that node. So it's very resource efficient. But we also have, maybe just the final bit that I wanted to show you guys is like, a Firefox container or a Chrome container. So you don't have to fire up an entire virtual machine just to get a browser. So we can fire up this guy. And if you watch it very closely, you can see that it's queued. It's going to be started. And then boom, when it was started, like the green check mark was showing up immediately. And then I can go to VNC, open up VNC on this guy, and it's probably going to be very small. It has a connection. It has a Firefox browser. It obviously has a Firefox browser, and it has a connection. And using this entire network topology that we have here, so basically this thing going from the browser through this access switch, and then network address translation to this routing device to the internet, we can actually browse the internet. But this could also be used to provide a web browser for some internal service. Let's assume that you have ICE, for example, inside of your topology, which is, by the way, something that we also ship with 2.9. If you have the resources to run it, that obviously will use a bit more than a couple of megabytes in terms of memory and CPU, compared to TACX Plus, this little container thing here. But, you can do these kind of things. And there's your browser that goes with it that sits in your topology running as a container, not using a lot of resources. I stop here.
That's really, really cool. Justin and Ralph, do we have a catalog of all the containers that are pre-built for our users to just be able to import? Is this something that's available?
Yeah, it is part of the release notes. That's all well documented, and has also for the individual containers documentation for what you can do, what you need to configure, what you can configure, what are the moving parts inside there.
Yeah, and just to real quick emphasize what Ralph was saying. I mean, the main benefit for those that aren't familiar with containers, I'm assuming most people are these days, but the main benefits that you get with CML are they're lightweight, extremely lightweight, and they're going to boot a lot quicker than a traditional VM. So that's really the main benefit here, because technically you could do all of this stuff via a virtual machine today in any of the versions of CML, but you would have to run a virtual machine and then have these services on top of that particular virtual machine. But what Docker allows you to do is run this lightweight container with, just one application. So you can spin it up quickly and not have all the extra overhead of running an entire virtual machine just for one node running one service.
I know that we could run other services on VMs and kind of partition them as needed. But it feels like this kind of pushes the edge of not just the learning experience, but if we're going to leverage Cisco Modeling Labs as a testing agent for like an infrastructure as code deployment, we could start to look at more real world opportunities here where we would have had to, for lack of a better word, kind of work around them through services within a VM. But this actually gives us the opportunity to test real world scenarios. And then I hate to say it, you guys are going to groan when I say it, but now we could start more easily adding in AI services as well, because that allows us to put these individual services right into our CML, test them out the way they would be in the real world, and have a lot more comfort level when we go to production and push those changes out that these things are going to work. So while Ralph was going through the demo, man, my head was spinning on the things that we could do with this.
Yeah. And my favorite phrase here is that, you're putting something in production that is not running for the first time because it didn't run for the first time. You run it inside of, some testing environment like CML, and you test the heck out of it. And then when you put it into production, you have the confidence, or like you have a better confidence, a higher confidence that it is working as it is intended to work.
Is there API support for this? So I know we could build our topology and via the actual CML APIs. Could I, part of that flow that I build, import my containers via APIs as well?
Today, yeah. So like the Docker containers, we do ship with the ones that you see here, and as Ralph mentioned, they'll be part of the release notes about what's officially supported. But additionally, you can add your own container types in CML. So it is a process, and that'll be documented in the documentation notes as well on how to import a custom Docker image, but that is something that we do support.
In terms of API support, nothing has changed. Like whether it's a Docker container, whether it's a VM, like the way how you interact with the system, the APIs haven't changed for that matter. So like, as I said before, Docker is a first-class citizen in this context.
Gotcha.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Justin, you had something you want to show us to extend the demo?
All right. So in all versions of Cisco Modeling Labs, we've had this concept of sample labs. And the idea behind sample labs is to give you just something to get started. But we get asked constantly from people at Cisco Live and our user base that, hey, I have Cisco Modeling Labs. I know that I can build a custom topology, but what a lot of people would like to have is some pre-built lab so they can just jump in, import that lab, and get started right away. So as I mentioned before, we've had this in Cisco Modeling Labs in all versions, but in 2.9, we've extended this functionality. And for those that don't know, we do have a GitHub repo that is public. We do take in pull requests as well. So if you want to add additional content in there, we do review those pull requests and pull information in. But in that GitHub repo, we have sample labs, we have some plugins, we have additional node definitions. So if you are trying to get third-party devices working inside of CML, that would be a good starting point for you. But in 2.9, we've integrated the sample labs that we have in that GitHub repo inside of CML. So CML 2.9 will ship with a snapshot of what's available in that GitHub repo. And you can see here, there's quite a few labs inside of CML now. I believe there's 58. We did a CCNA contest, I guess it was probably 6 months or maybe a little bit longer, where we had people submit CCNA labs into the GitHub repo, and those are all going to be part of Cisco Modeling Labs. So if I click on one of these labs, you can see the description of it. You can now see a preview of it. And then if I hit import, it'll import that lab, and then you can start it and get running with that lab right away. Additionally, if you're an admin, you can come into system administration and come down to lab repositories. And you can see here, this is the one that I mentioned previously that we ship with. So it's github.com, Cisco DevNet, and CML-community. And then we specify just the lab topologies folder is what we import. So just the sample labs. If you have additional lab repositories, like something internal or just even something public that you want to include inside of CML, you can click the add button here and then type in the, it doesn't have to be GitHub, it just has to be a Git repo. So it could be GitLab, it could be Bitbucket, lots of other Git options are available there. But you would add that URL and then it would add an additional repository. And as we make changes to the lab repository here, if you want to sync those changes, you would hit the refresh button and that would go out to the GitHub and do a sync. So, say 6 months from now, we've added, 100 new labs, you hit that refresh button and it would pull all those in automatically. And then when you come under tools and sample labs, and you would see those additional labs as part of the sample labs repository. And then we're working with Cisco U. We're trying, like right now I mentioned we have CCNA labs. We're trying to get some more advanced labs moving forward. So CCNP and CCIE level lab, that's something that we get asked about a lot at Cisco Live as well. So that's something that's in the works. But the good thing is with 2.9, as I mentioned, this is synced up. So when we add those labs, the only thing you'll have to do is go into the administration page, hit refresh, and it'll pull in any additional labs.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Not having to go out and pull it down and do an import and pick through the list like that. This is great. Gentlemen, unfortunately, this is all the time we have today to cover this, but you are newbies. So we do have to save a little bit of time at the end here.
Newbies to snack minute.
To snack minute. Yeah. Not to. So I'll start with Ralph. And now, Justin, this will give you time to think about it. Which superpower would you choose to have and why?
Oh boy. I think if I had really like the choice, I probably would want to be able to time travel and to go to, a time like, whatever the medieval age or something, just as a visitor, like, Romans or whatnot, like it just as a visitor, obviously not being exposed to like all the violence and whatever happened there. But, being able to watch something that happened in the past would be really super cool.
I agree with you on that. Justin, how about you?
I agree with Ralph. I don't want to steal his though, so I'm going to go with flying.
Okay.
I think flying would be very, very cool, just to be able to soar above everything and just fly from point A to point B, not have to take a plane.
That's all the top of our minds with Superman just coming back out. So
that's right.
Yeah, flying in time travel, but specifically to medieval times. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. This was fantastic. I think our snackers are going to be really excited about the opportunities that 2.9 is going to give us for working with CML in our learning and in our testing strategy. So thank you for that.
I can't wait to use the new features. Ralph and Justin, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, thank you so much. And maybe until next time.
Yes, well, we for sure. I'm sure there's there's more exciting stuff that you guys are working on.
Awesome.
Hey, Snackers, this is Kareem Iskander.
Hey, everyone, Matt DiNapoli here. This week, we have our friend Justin back. We wanted to kind of point out some of the top things that you may or may not know about CML. So, Justin, before we get into it, introduce yourself to our new snackers, and then we'll get going.
Hey, everyone, my name's Justin Gualiata, software architect for Cisco Modeling Labs. I work day-to-day on back-end, front-end, and all things CML.
Good to have you on, Justin. I know today we kind of wanted to give our snackers the most useful features. The whole CML product in general, I found very useful in every aspect. But we wanted to just kind of highlight the top 5 most useful features that everybody should know about. So you want to just get us started with that?
Sure. The first thing I want to touch on, and it's something that's asked quite a bit about Cisco Modeling Labs, Cisco Live, and other places, is can I connect virtual devices to physical devices? And the answer is yes. And the way we do that inside of CML is with the external connector. If I want to add an external connector, I can go to the drop-down toolbar here. I can drag and drop an external connector. And then there's a couple of configuration options you can do. So if you click on the external connector and go to config, by default, it's going to be in NAT mode, which means any devices connected into the external connector will be NATed behind the IP address for the CML server. The other option by default is going to be System Bridge. And System Bridge is going to put it on the same network as this CML instance. And then there's more advanced options. I won't go into too much with that, but if you want to do a custom bridge, or if you want to do trunking or VLANs, all that stuff, you have to go into Cockpit. And Cockpit runs on a different port. It's port 9090 on the CML box. And when you log in, there's a bunch of different options here on the sidebar. And if you come out down into networking here, we can see our bridge 0, we can see our NAT interface. And if you wanted to just add a new instance, here I added bridge 1, but let me just see if I can add a new one here. So we just call it bridge 2, add it. And then with this interface, you can configure whatever you want on it. These can be bridges, these can be VLANs, they can be trunks like I mentioned previously. And then you would come back under CML and then go into system administration and external connectors. And then you can see the bridge 2 interface has now been added. And if I go back to my lab and select that external connector, I can now select bridge 2. So that's one way that you can do a customized interface to get traffic from the virtual lab into the real world.
Yeah, that's really cool, because that's one of the bigger challenges in these things is getting traffic that is kind of real world. And I could see where that would be super useful in the simulation.
Yeah, it's really great for things that there isn't a virtual device for as well, because things like Wi-Fi access points today, you can do a controller inside of CML, but if you want to have access points join that controller, they have to be physical. So you can use the external connector to bridge those into your wireless LAN controller running inside of CML.
Oh, that's really neat, because then you can have and then the challenge becomes, where do you put those access points?
Yeah.
But that's not a problem for you CML guys, but that's really cool use case for this stuff.
Yeah. So the next feature I wanted to touch on, because I don't think that this is readily obvious for a lot of users, but if you right click on a node and if you go to console, it pops up these panes, and these panes allow you to get on the different console of the different devices. But what I want to point out is if you right click on these tabs, there's a couple options. You have global console settings, which allow you to change things like the font, the width, the columns, the themes. So you can do different colors, and that's globally across all the different consoles for that particular user. So that's something that you can do. I don't think that I have a VNC session open here, but there is change serial too. So some devices have multiple serial lines. By default, it'll connect to 0. But devices like the Nexus 9K does have an auxiliary console. And if you want to get onto it, you can change the line to serial 1. So that works. If I added a node that had VNC, let me just find one here. Yeah, desktop, here we go. Just one of these nodes. So if you have the VNC, there's a couple options here. Like you can paste the text if you want to paste it inside of the VNC session. And then there's a Control-Alt-Delete, which is hard to do without this button. So we've added this button if you need to send a Control-Alt-Delete to the VNC session. So not a big feature, but it's something that I wanted to point out because users might not necessarily know that exists.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't aware it was a desktop option.
Yeah, so there's essentially 2 different types. You have, desktop is a device that has GUI running in VNC, but as far as the terminal connections, you do have console or VNC as an option, depending on the virtual machine that's running. So if you did like Windows, for example, we don't ship with Windows, but if you install a Windows VM inside of CML, you can use VNC to connect to the GUI.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's really useful when you're running like a developer environment inside of CML to have that.
Well, that's what I was kind of noodling right now, because my experience with CML is with like pre-built topologies. I don't tend to build them myself or kind of poke around it too much. So as well as I do, Kareem, like setting up a scenario where, especially when we're making API calls to devices and things like that, we kind of have to rely on access outside the CML environment into the CML environment. But here, we could, in theory, build out a full end-to-end development lab, leveraging the desktop. So
it's really, really useful. And I think there is a VM that's embedded for developer environment, if I'm not mistaken, Justin, that I've seen, or maybe it's built on our side.
There is. It's not embedded inside the product, I don't believe. I mean, one of the challenges that we have is we ship with quite a few reference platforms. And over the last couple of releases, we started shifting some of those less commonly used images or larger images over to separate ISOs. Before, we just had one ISO, but now there are supplemental ISOs that you can run to get additional node types. It's really a challenge for us because the way we do reference platforms now is with that ISO, and there's constraints around it. We don't want it to be a terabyte of ISO that you download and all these different files. So we are on the back end looking at different ways to distribute the different reference platforms. So that is something that is I don't want to say it's on the roadmap yet, but it's something that we've been thinking about and trying to figure out how do we do that in a better way.
So, Justin, I see that you also have another call out for the Patty tool. Can you go through that and show our snackers what that could be useful for?
Sure. So with CML, there's a lot of different ways to connect to the devices that are running inside of CML. We have the web console, which I mentioned previously. From the GUI, you can open the console and get on the devices. We have the Breakout tool, which we've talked, I don't think we've talked with your particular crowd, but we do have documentation on how to set that up. And the Breakout tool is a way to run a client locally on your workstation and forward ports into the different consoles of the devices in a secure manner. But then we got feedback that it's a little bit too complicated and users don't necessarily always care about the security of those connections. So a couple of releases ago, we implemented this Patty tool. And what the Patty tool allows you to do is forward ports on the CML instance itself via tags. So if you look at the documentation here, this is under the 2.9 documentation I'm looking at here, but we can see over here on the right, we have serial :2001 on this particular switch. And what that tells CML to do is forward port 2001 to the serial port on that particular device. So from my device, I can connect to the CML instance on port 2001 when that tag's enabled, and it'll drop me onto that particular device.
Oh, that's cool. And these are from external devices?
Yeah, it's external to the CML device. So it allows you to kind of punch holes in the firewall to get to your lab devices on particular ports.
Oh, that's really cool too.
It does have the caveat that that is insecure. So once you punch those holes into the firewall via those tags, technically anybody can connect to that port. Now, depending on what you're running, there's going to be authentication or something like that running on those ports, but those ports are wide open. So it's something to keep in mind if you do this. And there's other more advanced stuff you can do. As the documentation here points out, you can do like PAT and UDP, and you can forward TCP as well. So it can get fairly complex depending on your particular scenario, but it's a good way. If you're trying to test from a remote machine into a lab, you can turn something like SNMP on inside the lab and forward that particular port and then connect from some client that you're running externally to CML into that instance.
Yeah, I could see like within a data center lab environment that's walled off from the rest of the world, that this could be extremely useful for virtual testing scenarios going forward, because that, connecting to outside devices has always been a challenge for some of these lab environments. So that's really, really cool. I didn't know this existed either.
But your solution, Matt, is to open every single port possible. So
because I'm an idiot. Yeah. I am an idiot and I have nothing to hide. So we're getting done.
Awesome.
All right. Next thing I'll mention, I get asked this a lot, is does CML support third-party devices? And the answer is it doesn't support it from a TAC perspective if you have an enterprise license, but we do have on our GitHub community page, which is available at this URL here, we do have node definitions here that are user contributed. So there's lots of different third-party devices that you can get the node definition for. Now you will need to obtain the images for those. They're QCOW images for these different devices. So if you have entitlement to those third-party devices and you can get the binary images for them, these node definitions will tell CML how to stand up a reference platform with that particular node type. So there's Windows Server, Windows Desktop, lots of different vendors that you can run inside of CML. So that is a question we get a lot. A lot of users assume that since it's a Cisco product that we only support Cisco devices. The thing is we only ship Cisco devices. And there's even some things that we don't have necessarily entitlement to ship with even Cisco devices inside of CML that you can run inside of CML as well.
See, I didn't know this. I assumed it's only Cisco. So if you want to bring in an external device or other than Cisco device, you have to use an external COM into CML and just connect to it that way. But I didn't realize that there's actually the images that you can bring in.
Yeah, if anybody has a device that's not supported or not shown on this list and you want it to work inside of CML, we do accept pull requests. So if you go to this GitHub page and say you figure out, some, like OpenWRT or something that we don't have an image for, and you get it working inside of CML, then you can contribute that. I mean, in general, we run QEMU on the back end. So anything that is, virtual should be able to run inside of CML.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right. We got through 4, Justin. What's the last one you got for us?
Right. Yeah, the last one is for those users that are potentially resource constrained. So by default, the node reference platforms have a set amount of CPU and RAM that they're defined to start with. And we have to specify that in a way that would essentially cover all scenarios. So think about something like a router. You're generally not going to run every protocol under the sun on that particular router, and each one of those protocols are going to use more memory and CPU resources. So when we create the reference platforms, they have to have kind of the max that you could potentially use. Now, what you can do, assuming that you're not running every protocol on a particular device, you can come under the device here. Let me just add a new one here. So if I add a Nexus 9K, this has 12 gigs of RAM as the default. So 12288 is the default RAM. Scroll down here. CPUs, it has 2. And then we have CPU limit, which isn't set by default. And what you can do is you can change this to something like 8192. So instead of using 12 gigs, we use 8 gigs of memory. So it's a third less. So if we do that, we'll keep the CPUs at 2. It does need 2 CPUs because it has a controller and a fabric that it runs inside, and it needs 2 CPUs or else it won't start. And then CPU limit, you can set this to something lower. So if I set this to 80%, it would tell the device to cap the CPU at only 80%. And I went ahead and started one of these before we started recording. And if I come under here, you can see that 8 gigs, 80 CPU limit, and the device is still functioning. So if I go into the device, we can see it's up and running. Now, your mileage will vary with this. I mean, you can play around with it. You can go down, maybe even a little bit lower, and just kind of see the point at which it crashes based on your particular instance. Just keep in mind that if you do modify this, things could potentially break. But it is a good way if you are resource constrained, so lower some of those resources. So imagine if I had 10 of these running, it would be by default 120 gigs of memory, but with this, it would lower it to 80 gigs, so quite a bit less.
That's definitely useful.
Yeah, especially for us that work in those lab environments where we do have to worry about resource usage, like as a cost factor too, not just capacity.
And question for you, Justin, before we let you go real quick here, some of the features that you showed here obviously are only for premium users or enterprise level licenses, but for the free licenses, some of these features are available for our snackers if they're using free CML?
Yeah, all the features that I mentioned, I think they should all be available for free. I mean, the only really limit around free versus like the personal and personal plus versions is the number of nodes that you can run at any given time. So you can only have 5 nodes in the free version of CML, whereas personal is 20 and personal plus is 40.
Cool.
And the node is the other thing. So we do limit the amount of, or the different types of nodes for the free version as well. Like the Nexus 9K isn't available. It's something we get asked a lot as well. And
right.
It's really difficult for us because if you talk to the users, obviously they want everything, which makes sense from a user perspective, but there kind of has to be a line drawn in the sand between free version and personal. And one of those lines today is the different types of reference platforms that we ship with.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. Well, Justin, unfortunately, we're at time. Thank you for showing us these cool little tools, or I don't want to say little, that's not even right. These are extremely useful tools within CML. Snackers, if you didn't know about them, I hope you're just learning about them, or if you knew about them but didn't get to use them, thanks to Justin for showing us how to take advantage of those opportunities there. So we should have a running series, Kareem, CML behind the scenes and, little fun things we can do and use cases we can hit up on CML. I always find these really useful. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Likewise. Justin, thank you so much. And thank you, Snackers, for your time today.
Thanks, everyone.